Breaking news the moment that we ended the show, Collin Morikawa has pulled out of the Valero Texas Open. I don't feel as confident about that Masters future that I made out of now, Blickle.
Yeah, if I was on camera at all while you were closing the show, you'd see me just look at my phone and start laughing because I noticed, oh, we're not done with the show yet. We gotta talk through what the Morikawa withdrawal means. One thing I'll say is, like, we already talked about the fact that there are a lot of options up top. There are still a lot of options up top, so I don't think it's going to drastically affect too much, but it definitely means what we talked about with. I think the point that I made with him earlier was that, like, if he's playing this week, it means he's good to go. Well, he's not playing, so he does not think he's good to go, and that's not a good sign for Augusta.
Well, this is why I advocated the outright bet on him, because I'm in on Morikawa. I got him up to 33-1 for this week. I'm going to get the money back. Like, I'm not too concerned about that. It's not like he played one hole and went out. That I wanted to get on that number early, because if he wasn't hurt, I felt like it was completely mispriced. None of these were withdrawn. It's not that big of a deal. I do need to go back to the drawing board to figure out what I want to do here. So we had built a lineup earlier, the single entry lineup of the higher confidence plays that had Morikawa in it as the second man in. We still have Siwoo there. Would you just go to Spieth, Straka, or Matsuyama? I would go to Straka. Or would you go back up to Henley, which was your initial lean?
I think I'm going to try to get that extra $400 to go to Henley. I think the field will probably mostly just go to Hideki. Hideki was also going to be a pretty popular play. It's going to be tough, though, because, like, that $400 trying to get to Henley really could come into play. We went with Collin instead of Henley specifically because we realized that those 400 would come into play. So it's not going to be the easiest move to get back up to Henley.
You probably don't get Johnny Kiefer now or Keith Mitchell.
You get exactly. Yeah, I think one of those guys is going to have to come down, because I'm less likely to take one of the, like, 7,200 guys all the way down to 6,800 unless I want to take a chance on Hustler or really make the disgusting Putnam play.
Yeah, or you could just do something like this, like Henley, Siwoo, Novak, and Kiefer, and then instead of Keith Mitchell, it's Nick Taylor, and then it's Tom Kim, something like that.
Right. And so to me, like, the move from Mitchell to Nick Taylor is just a lot easier to stomach. So that's probably what a lot of lineups are going to kind of do. And what we might see is, because there's going to be so much love for this 9K range, Straka, Hideki, Siwoo, Henley, and then up to Oberg and Tommy as well. And then there are a bunch of guys in the 7s. We might see that, like, all of the guys in the 8s, the Mitchell, Spawn, Noren, Fowler, they're kind of in no man's land and really end up lower on than they should be. And so, you know, when Tambo and I do our leverage lane show on Wednesday morning, that might be my leverage lane, is just hammer that 8K range. If I'm right that we just see all ownership go above them and below them, and these really solid players are all kind of underowned.
I'm glad we caught this in time before the show actually got published, which is fantastic news. But I want everyone to smash the likes and sub to the channel and disregard everything we said about Collin Morikawa on this show, okay? Let's go.
At Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Valero Texas Open DraftKings picks. Preview, smash the like, sub to the channel. Give me your favorite sleeper at 6K as well. Alex Blickle from FTN Fantasy joining me on the line. Did you put more prep into Valero, or have you moved on to the Masters yet and trying to win, like, the millions and millions and millions of dollars that are being given away?
Well, the intermediate step is I got to first win some tickets into the Masters. So I'm all about the Valero this week. I really love this tournament. I think it might be my actual most successful event over the last, like, 5-10 years, whatever, for PGA DFS. So this is a really fun one. Love the course fit model this week, and really excited to talk about this whole event and the strategy to take this week.
Well, let's start off with the wind, because it's going to be incredibly windy all week long. Looking at the report right now, I'm using the San Antonio International Airport. Maybe you can find one a bit closer, but this is what we're seeing, I think, all around where the course is being played outside of San Antonio this week, that we got rain in the forecast. You got wind Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all essentially sustained right around 15 to 20 miles per hour with gusts up there. We might get a delay on Thursday. There might be a delay on Saturday. There's still rain in the forecast for Sunday. Last year, this happened on the weekend. Only 5 guys broke 70 on the weekend a year ago. And in the final round, I think it was only 2 players did it. Brian Harmon won shooting 75, 76 on Sunday, and still won by like half a touchdown. So are we thinking more that we want the... Okay, in the wind, what type of players do you like to play? Because I can pull up the rabbit hole right now and we can take a look at the best players in the wind. And I think that's directionally accurate based on what the players do well. When you just see the names that pop up, you know who it is? Excellent ball strikers. Guys that can pierce it through the wind. I don't even need to have like the low apex flight because guys adjust their games once they start playing in the wind. Straka like head over heels over the past year, way better in the wind than anyone else, over a shot per round better than Hideki, who's in second. But with that, I think some of this is a lot of course dependent too. When you just look at pure metrics on ball striking in the wind, like playing Valero is a lot different than playing like Valspar in this type of wind.
Definitely. And I think a big variable too is we often think about ball strikers in the wind, and you're 100% right, because the more flush you hit the ball, the more it's going to hold its line through any kind of wind. But there's also a huge variable, which is putting in the wind. And the hardest part about putting in the wind is it can literally knock you off balance. And so one of the things that I actually look for is either guys who have a bit of a sturdy build or guys who have a very wide base in their natural putting stroke, because that's just kind of a hidden advantage that not a lot of people are thinking about. And when you see like Hideki actually gaining strokes putting in the wind, it's because, well, he's number one, has like tree trunks for legs, but number two, has one of the widest putting stances on tour. And so anytime there's wind, it's always going to affect his putting stroke less than some of the skinnier guys who have their feet together in their putting stroke. It's a much bigger adjustment for those guys. And then, we often see like a lot of missed putts from 4 feet, 5 feet. And it's not that the wind is moving the ball from that distance. It's that the wind is moving the putter and the player in their putting stroke.
I gotta say that this actually kind of tracks based on my own personal experience. Like I go up and play the Cabot courses every single year in May, and it's cold. It's anywhere between like 40 and 50 degrees. And I played the Cliffs last year, and it was 40-mile-per-hour winds, and it's directly on the coast, so it's just cold wind hitting you. We got to a point with some of the very coastal holes where I was trying to line up a putt. There was just wind blowing in my eyes, and I was basically being knocked into the ocean. And I did not putt well on that hole.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really, really hard to do. And it's one of those things where, like, obviously the more you do it, the better you become at it. But I think you also see like guys who are, from overseas and grew up in really windy areas. Typically they have a wider base in their putting stroke just naturally, because growing up they had to do it, especially when they were, young and growing up, and they weighed 120 pounds. If they didn't have a wide base, like you just said, they were going to be blown into the ocean. So it's one of those things where, like, it takes a long time to see it in the data, but over long periods of time, you do see it. And that's why, like, for one thing, when I do wind split analysis, I'm not looking at the last 6 months or the last year. I'm looking like literally over the last 3 years, how has this player done in the wind? Because I want that extra sample size.
Well, let's take a look at the past 3 years. So it gives us similar names. Obviously, Straka bumps down on that list. He goes from like first to 10th. Morikawa vaults to number one by it's Morikawa, Chandler Blanchet, Dan Brown, and that's only 4 rounds, and those are probably all the Open Championship rounds that he played when he was in contention, smoking cigs in the rain that time. John Perry is up there, Bud Cauley, a Texas guy, that kind of tracks, heavy-set Texas guy, coming off a WD, so we'll see how injured or not injured he is. He has not withdrawn from this tournament yet, like some other guys, so maybe he's good to go. And Hideki remains up there as well. So does Siwoo, so does Fleetwood, McNeely, Vince Whaley, Novak, who's a guy that we're going to talk about, Tom Hoagie, Tommy Fleetwood, JJ Spawn. I mean, everyone besides Tommy kind of tracks on that list.
Yeah, and like Tommy's on this list not because he's an excellent wind player, but because he's an excellent player, period. Correct. So, even if he's a little bit worse in the wind than in non-windy conditions, he's still going to show up on the strokes gain leaderboard. So it's another thing that I like to do is I like to actually just like print all this stuff out and put it into an Excel file and then compare, okay, this is how he does in windy conditions. This is how he does in non-windy conditions. Who's actually playing better in windy conditions than their baseline.
So you can actually do that on the rabbit hole right now, betspertsgolf.com/Mayo. If you do get a sub this week, that enters you in the draw for the free HELIX mattress. You want a mattress, Blickle? Are you in the market for a mattress? Because these HELIX ones, I mean, they're up to like $2,000. It's a pretty good giveaway.
Yeah, I think it'll be in the market for a new apartment soon. And when I do get a new apartment, I'll probably want a new mattress.
See, yeah, you can go to helixsleep.com/Mayo, or you can just get the rabbit hole this week, or hit the description, find all the ways that you can enter the draw, and maybe you'll just win a free mattress. Get yourself a California King on the house from Pat Mayo and helixsleep.com. I mean, Blanchet is interesting, but it's only one weighted round. And there's 5 that, I mean, he just played really well at Puerto Rico. I'm pretty sure that's why he's popping up on that list. So how do we think about it with the sample? And if just off the top of your head, if you're thinking about wide base putting players outside of Hideki, there's only really one I can think of that springs to mind. And I don't hate him here.
Is it Zalatoris?
It wasn't Zalatoris. It was Dylon. Woo!
Oh, interesting. I mean, Zalatoris is already popping a little bit in the win stuff that I was looking at. And it's funny with him because the knock on Zalatoris is like when you watch him hit a short putt, his putter's already kind of going all over the place. It's disgusting. But that happens to everybody in the really windy conditions. And he has a wider base because of the longer putter. So he's really interesting in these conditions. And obviously he really fits the mold of ball striker in wind. He can flush it through the wind. And so I do have some interest in Zalatoris, which is not something I've said in the last 3 years.
He rated out really well in the model that I built on the research show, but that was more grabbing rounds from, or if he had a spike round, it was over influence because he's played so few rounds. He was bad last week. I know he just missed the cut, but it was all putting that got him there. And wouldn't really bank on Zalatoris' putting.
I certainly would not either. And the thing that's really concerned me ever since his return from the injury is the fact that his ball speed's gone. Like when he came up onto the tour, as skinny and wiry as he is, he had a nice distance advantage over much of the field. That's all gone. It's not like he's just lost a little bit of speed. His distance advantage is entirely gone. I think it's partially that he just hasn't built the strength back up and hasn't been healthy long enough to build the strength back up the way that we've seen Woodland do, right? Like Woodland came back and it's taken him time. And all of a sudden here he is, 41 years old, hitting 196 ball speed. Absolutely insane. Zalatoris hasn't been healthy long enough to do that, but also I think some of the changes that he's made to his swing in the name of protecting his back have also contributed to that loss in ball speed.
Yeah, 2002, 181 ball speed. 2023, 180 ball speed. He's down at 176. That's up slightly from last year where he was at 175. So, yeah, it's been trending way down for him. And that was a huge skill that he had. He was part of that group that had plus distance, plus accuracy. And, I mean, the distance is still pretty good, but the accuracy is way down.
It's really weird. This was probably his number 2 strength behind his approach play, and it's gone, and it's making it really, really hard for him to overcome everything else.
How do we figure this out in terms of DraftKings this week? Because I don't see a split like, oh, you got to play the AM guys or you got to play the PM guys. When you take a look at the weather, it's just kind of the same all week. That still leads me to want to stack both sides and try to get lucky.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And especially this early in the week, we don't even have tee times yet. So it's of course extremely difficult to say, this is who I want to play. This is how I want to stack it. And, I'm a proponent of not just looking at the weather and saying, okay, it looks like early late's going to have advantage, so I'm going to stack. But sometimes you say, these are the 3 guys that I really want to play. They all happen to be in this wave. So I might as well just make a bet on this wave and just hope to get lucky there. So I'm with you on the idea that it seems like there's going to be pretty severe weather this week. Just the wind is going to be up all week long. We're probably not going to have a great sense, even on Wednesday night, of, okay, this is the wave that's going to have the advantage. But there's definitely going to be enough uncertainty to just say the chance that a wave advantage does appear is high enough that I can play it in either side and hope to get lucky. Or if you're a single entry guy like me, you can just pick a side and hope to get lucky. And that's certainly going to be part of my process this week.
That makes a ton of sense. So stack either side. And I'll have this more in the newsletter coming out on Wednesday. Once we have the tee times and we get a little bit closer to lock, that we can try to figure out if there is an advantage on one side or another. But with that rain delay potentially coming on Thursday, we've seen this so many times that if you just stack up the AM guys because it looks so great, oh no, there's a bit of rain and now they have the worst of it.
Yeah, it happens. And sometimes you can just be really almost confused by why one wave had an advantage over the other. It's not always clear. Of course, sometimes that's just, randomness that, hey, it just so happened that these good players in this wave all played poorly together. And it wasn't that it was more difficult. It's just that they played poorly. And so it appears like there was, a half a stroke or a full stroke disadvantage for that wave. No, they just played poorly. But that sort of stuff happens all the time. And if you just take the approach of, I'm going to hope that this wave ends up with the advantage, you can luck into those scenarios. And that's always a good thing.
Round 4 a year ago. Now, it's a little bit different when you're looking at overall strokes gained, because I do think that you need to factor in the positioning of the players, that Harman probably did not get as aggressive as he might have done if he was 4 strokes back and make some really quality shots, knowing that he was just up by so much that, even if I just bogey out, I'm going to be fine. So you do play your game differently. So I'm just trying to extrapolate guys from the top of the leaderboard versus the bottom of the leaderboard. Can give you a lot of noise, but I did want to highlight some of the guys that played really well in the final round at this course last year. Thorbjorn Olesen and Fishburne had by far the best days. They were the guys who cracked 70. Ryan Gerard was the only other one to crack 70. So they had the 3 best. Bud Colley, Cam Young, Kuchar, Cole, McNeely, Spieth, Chandler Phillips, Gary Woodland, Toasty, Matt Wallace was in there. Berger just withdrew from this tournament, so he's done. Like Ryo Hitsetsune was inside the top 20 last year in total strokes gained in the final round. He was +2 on the day. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. And then other than that, it's like Ben Griffin, Brian Harman, Sammy Valimaki. Do any of those names stick out to you as like, hey, maybe there is something to this?
Not necessarily. I think the one who just like in every single thing that I look at just keeps popping up is Fishburne. Fishburne's one of the guys who really performs well in the wind. He was on one of the first leaderboards that you brought up for wind. And it made me want to make the point that like when you're looking at wind splits, you should always expect, as we talked about with Tommy Fleetwood, you should always expect to see some of the better names. And when you see those better names, it doesn't mean, oh, this guy's awesome in wind, I got to play him. That usually just means, okay, he at least plays to his baseline in the wind. When you see names with a good sample size, because Fishburne's sample size was among the best there of anybody, who don't like quote unquote belong in that tier of player, that's the guy who, okay, this guy like really is much, much, much better than his baseline in these conditions. That's the type of player that you really want to take note of. And so the fact that Fishburne was this good on this golf course last year in the wind, certainly of note.
So Fishburne was 4th in those total strokes gained in the wind over the past 3 years with a sample size of 30 rounds, 19 of them weighted. Bud Colley is someone who seems to overperform with a larger sample of over 30 rounds of that as well. And then you're at, Matt Kuchar, but Matt Kuchar's Matt Kuchar at this point. He's like an old man. But those would be the 2 that really stick out with a lot of rounds. The other ones, again, would be Blanchet, Dan Brown, the Da Vinci Code. John Perry has been pretty good all year, but not great at any point. He has a really weird... Like if you go and try to track what he's been up to all season long, no missed cuts on the card, but 1 top 10, and that came in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, he's like the opposite of some guys. Sometimes you can look at, a player, the way that he's been gaining strokes or losing strokes, and you can say, oh, he's missed a couple cuts, but all he has to do is bring like the really good skill sets together. He's spiked in approach play, and he's spiked in putting, and he's spiked off the tee. He just doesn't spike together. With him, it's been weird. It's like he keeps having just good enough of a round in one category to make the cut, but he's number 1, not putting it together. And number 2, it's like every single event that he's played could have been a missed cut. And so you can't just look and say, man, he's playing some really good, consistent golf.
Vince Whaley is the other one who just kind of pops up out of nowhere. I assume, I don't need to assume. I can go look at the data if I really want to. Vince Whaley, yeah. I assumed it was all putting. It is all putting from him. It's not like awful in the wind. He actually drives it pretty well in the wind, but the putter is some of the best in the field when the conditions get windy, which kind of tracks with him being a great putter anyway. Yeah,
agreed. And that's obviously like another thing to think of. It's actually similar to ball striking, right? The reason why good ball strikers tend to be good in the wind is because they're making flush contact. So when the wind like enhances a miss more than it hurts a really good shot. When you miss, the wind just pushes it more and more offline. And the more you miss, the stronger the effect of the wind on the actual shot. The same sort of thing is true of putting. When you're consistently making really good firm strokes to the center of the cup, a little bit of wind isn't going to move that out. If you're consistently like just barely making those 5-footers, inside the lip, now the wind is pushing it just outside. So it's one of those things where, yeah, as usual, the better putters tend to be better putters in the wind. Better ball strikers tend to be better ball strikers in the wind.
Lonto Griffin is back in this field. He has a win in Texas in his career. He's been on the Korn Ferry Tour. He was last week, but he's missed every cut so far this season on tour. Then he just pops with a T7 on KFT last week. Why do you think that is? Is it just that the skill gap is so big, or is it somewhat freeing? No, you kind of talked about this when you were trying to qualify for the U.S. Open, that in round one, you're one of the best players, and that makes it a bit easier than when you go and play against the Live guys and Denny McCarthy, that you're like, well, I'm not as good as these guys, so this is going to be a bit more difficult. Does that translate between PGA and KFT jumping back and forth?
Definitely. It 100% does. And then there's also just an element of Lonto's game is like, it's inconsistent, but man, when he's playing well, he plays really, really well. So anytime he's actually like in rhythm and playing well, making the swings that he wants to make, he's going to find himself near leaderboards, especially in a field like that. And when he doesn't play well, it can get pretty ugly pretty quick.
Since it's Masters Week, I'm going to give away a big prize. Do you want that prize? It's easy. Just hit the description and you can find all of the ways to get into the draw. But the big one to get into that draw for the free HELIX mattress is subscribing to the rabbit hole at betspertsgolf.com/Mayo. If you've already done that, you're already in the draw. As long as you've done it through me, you are good to go. But you can still rate, review, subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. On Apple, there's 20 ballots. Do it again on Spotify, there's another 20 ballots. Sub to Mayo Media Network on YouTube, 15 ballots. You want to subscribe to the free Mayo Media newsletter with all the up-to-date news, plus bonus content, there's 15 ballots as well. If you're just on social media, hit that retweet. There's one right there. You share the article around, there's 10 for you. It's all listed down in the description. Get your hands on as many ballots as possible to get in that draw for a free HELIX mattress. Now, I do vouch for HELIX mattresses. Go to helixsleep.com/Mayo. Get yourself 20% off site-wide right now. Thanks for supporting the show. Let's get back to it. Would you go back to when it's a very limited sample, it's only 3 rounds, but the best ball striker in this field in those high wind conditions is Johnny Kiefer, who's coming off a great week in Houston. He's a Texas guy. That's where he lives. He lives in San Antonio, so I'm sure he's played this course a few times, even though he's like 14 years old or something. But would you kind of ride the hot hand with him? Because when I think of this course, I'm of two minds of the players that I want. That an overall tee to green great game is when I go into the week like, wow, there's low greens and regulations hit, and it can get super windy, and you're going to have to rely on your short game, and they're smaller than average greens. But when I go back and look at the guys who win, they're either suck putting or suck chipping. They do like one of the two well, but the thing that they do better than anyone during the week is just hit a bunch of greens in regulation.
It's one of those golf courses. And actually, we see a ton of around the green signal at this course where we talked, if you remember at the Players' Championship, we talked about the fact that like around the green really matters, but it's one of those skills that it doesn't help separate you once you've made the cut. It doesn't help you contend. It's more penalizing to not be good around the green at TPC Sawgrass than it is beneficial to be very good around the green. That's not the case here. Around the green is a very predictive skill set here in terms of just making the cut and helping you in that way, but it also helps separate you and get you to the top of the leaderboard. It's a really unique course in that way that it enhances around the green signals like that. But to your point, like that also means that sometimes the real separating skill is going to be not even needing around the green. Because why is around the green that much of a separator here? It's because most guys are going to be missing a fair amount of greens. Most guys are going to need their short game to help score on some of the par 5s and some of the shorter par 4s. But if you're just hitting those greens instead of having to chip, that of course is even better. And so it's like there are two ways to separate. Number one is to just be that much better than everybody else around the green here. The second way is to just say, I'm going to ball strike this place to death and just not even need that skill set.
When I think back and look at the former winners, I just think ball striking. Brian Harman seems like such an outlier at this course from a year ago, but when I hit Akshay to win here, it was my entire hypothesis that you get him on the green, he can putt. Like that's back when Akshay was just a disaster around the greens. But if you just take that out of the situation, he hits all the greens in regulation, he's going to light this place up. And he did that week. So that was great. But like any place where Corey Connors can win twice, I'm very dubious about around the green. Although the around the green here now is a little bit different, that they have shaved off a lot of surfaces. Like a lot of guys were putting from off the green last year, which I thought was pretty unique. They wanted to make it, they've made these two Texas events, not that they're like great prep, for the Masters, because nothing is going to be like the Masters, but they've at least simulated some features that Augusta has. Like last week, no rough. Hit it wherever you want. There might be a tree in your way. If there's not, you're going to have a clear line of sight to the hole, and you're going to be able to hit whatever shot that you want. Here around the green, they have shaved off a lot of these surfaces that, not that you're ever going to putt from off the green at Augusta, but if you did want to get your wedges going, albeit on different green surfaces, that you do have that ability to try that out this week.
It's really interesting to me that Memorial Park has really taken that approach to their setup and like wanting to be the quote unquote Augusta prep course in the fact that they don't have really any penalizing rough. Because what we end up seeing is that the course plays so differently from the way Augusta plays, right? Like Augusta is not a bomber's paradise in any way, shape, or form. And certainly it's not a bomber's paradise in the sense that at Memorial Park, like that's the only thing that really has a ton of predictive value.
But does ball speed and driving distance at Memorial Park have the most predictive signal of any stat at any tournament all year?
It's certainly close. I don't know about like the just direct correlation between this stat and finishing position, but it is definitely the highest signal relative to its usual. Like last week alone, driving distance was 350% more predictive than usually. So if you take any two players and you say, okay, let's say they're a full stroke different. You don't usually get a full stroke different in driving distance skill, but if one guy gains a full stroke more than another, so think of Pot Geeter versus like literally the shortest guy in the field. That's usually a full stroke difference in strokes gained driving distance. At that course, it's worth 3.5 strokes per round, not 1 stroke per round. It's unbelievable that any skill set could be multiplied that much by a golf course, but that's what we see last week. And so going back to my original point here, like it's weird that that's the course that has decided to be the Augusta Prep, because the Valero Texas Open, this golf course has an extremely similar course fit model to Augusta. So if it might lose that if they got rid of the rough. Like, accuracy is really important at Augusta. Accuracy is really important here. If you get rid of the rough here, maybe you lose that accuracy signal. So it's not a one-to-one thing where you could just say, okay, well, that means that if they set it up like Augusta, it'd play even more like Augusta. But from a skill set standpoint, the test here is very similar to what it is at Augusta, even though the layout and the grounds are obviously very different.
Let's build some lineups. And I want to quiz you on a player this week that I saw in the field last week. I think when I was doing the final prep, I was like, I can't believe this guy's in the field. I thought he retired from golf. But his past 7 starts, T10, T11, T15, T16, T15, T12, T13. He has 7 consecutive top 20 starts between Korn Ferry and now the PGA Tour. I threw him in to my initial lineup. I wanted to see what you made of this. Bronson Burgoon is $6,600, and he's playing good golf.
Okay, when you first said I can't believe this guy's in the lineup, I thought you were going to say Ryan, or in the field. I thought you were going to say Ryan Palmer, and then you started listing those finishes. I was like, all right, this is definitely not Ryan Palmer because he is not finishing that well. Burgoon, he's one of those guys. Like, look, we all have players that at some point in our DFS careers, we have loved playing this guy, and he had like a really good, month stretch for us, and then he disappeared. And for me, that's Burgoon. Burgoon was like one of my guys like 6 years ago or something like that. Hasn't been in a while, but you're 100% right. He's playing some really good golf, and he does have some skill sets that seem to fit here. And he's also the kind of ball striker that you would at least expect to be good in the wind.
Yeah, he has played well in the wind historically through his career. So the first lineup I built, like kind of what I just went in, what do I want to do? I want to get in 3 of the top guys because I'm having a very difficult time betting this tournament, and I'm having a very difficult time finding those mid-range guys that I don't feel like are overpriced. So I went Siwoo, Morikawa, Straka as my base. So 96, 94, 92 into Thorbjorn Olesen, who I do really like this week. I pray to God he can make a putt. Marty Doe, who continues just to play really good golf and does what you want here. He putts well, he chips well, he hits his irons well, and he's very accurate, if not long off the tee. He's only 7,100. And then I went with the Burgoonies. Hey, you guys, $6,600. And I still got 300 left over. We can make I can upgrade Burgoon to Michael Kim. I probably should bet Michael Kim at least first round leader since my show with Michael Kim and the hole by hole breakdown of Augusta is coming out on Thursday. Just give it good vibes. But this is not the lineup I thought I'd be constructing heading into the week because the bottom end of this field sucks.
Yeah. So I love the fact that you made this the first lineup because it's like just a perfect example of what I think the the theme of roster constructions is this week, which is there are going to be some very popular plays up top. I think Siwoo, Morikawa, Straka, like all three of them have a chance to be among the more popular, but certainly Morikawa should be, as long as people aren't afraid of the injury.
Do you really think that Morikawa is going to be that? If Morikawa was going to be that popular, I know you're the guy with the more accurate ownership projections than basically anyone. But when the first click I made when I opened the odds board was Morikawa. I thought his price was ridiculous. If he's hurt, he's hurt. Then it's a losing bet. If he's not hurt, why wouldn't he be the betting favorite in this field?
I think he should be, and he's first in our win odds. And I even put in a little penalty. So like one of the things that we can do in our simulations now is put in like a binary like injury variable. So, there's I think we made it like there's a 3/4 chance that he's healthy and there's a 1/4 chance that he's playing injured and it's going to take some time to ramp up. And he's still first in our win odds. So I'm with you that he should be. And I do expect him to be really popular because I think for one thing, like most sites around the industry are not going to price in or project in any injury risk. They're just going to say, hey, he might be injured, but our projections say that he's not. And there are still enough people who are using projections to build their lineups. And so I do expect him to be one of the more popular, and I think that he should be.
I agree. I think that people are going to have a hard time. There's nothing like the DFS player scoring, Blickle. 43% of people used him at the Players' Championship, and he withdrew after one hole. I don't know if they don't want to have to go through that again. I'm willing to take on that risk. It's fine. And as we found out with Rory, I said the exact same thing about Rory at the Players, and I did it. I played a ton of Rory. Now, he sucked, but it wasn't because of his injury. He just played bad.
Yeah, and I think what many people are going to realize is that the Masters is next week. If a player wasn't sure that he was ready and healthy to be back, would he be swinging and risking re-injury right before the Masters? I don't think so. And so the fact that he's playing it all this week tells me he's good to go. He knows that he's ready. He wants one event to, just get his game back in order to try and find that rhythm that he had previously been in, because he's been playing some really good golf this year. I think he's totally fine. And I think the field is going to view it that way as well.
I bet on him this week to win. I also made my second wager for the Masters after Matty Fitz from the preseason, or at least over December as a future. I bet on Morikawa at 28-1 to win next week.
I like it. I made a future as well for the Masters if you want to hear it.
Is it Xander?
No, it's Adam Scott.
Really?
Yeah.
Great Scott. Why?
Yeah. So it's a combination of, number one, just the ball speed's so ridiculously impressive from him. It's a similar story to Gary Woodland. He's not hitting 196 the way that Woodland did, but the ball speed's awesome from Adam Scott, and it just shows how hard he's still working to be one of the players who can contend and actually win big events. But man, the approach play from Adam Scott has been the best that it's been for him in quite some time, and going to a course where we obviously know he knows Augusta well, he plays it really well, he fits the golf course. I feel really good about him. He moves the ball right to left, but look at Adam Scott's approach play this year. I mean, 0.6 per round, 0.8, 0.6, 1.1, 1.8, 1.6 per round. That's every single event. So it's not just that like he's gaining every event with the irons. They're just getting better and better and better. I really like his chances at Augusta. And I think what we're going to see is, as soon as we get to Augusta week, and we know how much people value course history and past success at the golf course, as soon as we see like the reshuffling of the odds in week, we're going to see Adam Scott go from the 80-1 that I got him at way down to like 45, 50, something in that range.
That's really interesting. Do you see he has the two spike weeks, both like at the Genesis, at Bay Hill. He's played well against good fields so far this year, but you can see just how much his chipping and his putting have held him back. Curious to know the past few years what he's done at the Masters in this. Again, betsportsgolf.com/Mayo. Get all this info right at your fingertips. He got cut last year. Wow, he probably blew up a bunch of mine to make the cut parlays. He was actually one of the first names. He and Siwoo were the first two names I wrote down as just. They're just etched into to make the cut parlay at the Masters every year. Usually he chips it and putts it well at the Masters, but you can see last year, 2022, he has some bad chipping years at the Masters. He has some very good putting years at the Masters, though.
Yeah, I mean, so the interesting thing with these results from him at the Masters is like for a lot of those years, especially 2020 through 2023, he wasn't that good of a player, right? Like if you remember, we were all kind of surprised that he didn't take the live bag because it seemed like he was, in the twilight of his career and maybe had already kind of gone over that hill where he just wasn't going to be able to contend anymore and compete. So we all kind of expected that he would just take that retirement package, if you will, from live. And here he is playing some of the best golf of his life, especially from an irons perspective. So I really like his chances this year. I think I'd put him in like the top 30 of guys most likely to win the Masters.
So last year, you can see his lead-in form on the screen right now. He was driving it okay. He had a few good iron week on the West Coast, and then he just went in the tank once we got to Florida, and nothing really clicked for him. The year before that, at the Masters, he came T22, gained a bunch on approach, drove the ball very poorly, but again, had very poor iron weeks coming in. Although, again, on the West Coast, he was... So this is more the profile this year of what we've seen from him, except he was putting well during those times, and the irons weren't quite as good. The driving wasn't quite as good, but I think this is the more similar profile of what we're looking at. I don't know if I'm going to get to Adam Scott win, but Adam Scott top 10 might be a really good look.
Yeah, and actually, I did take the traditional 1/4 each way for that with 5 spots instead of the 1/5 for 3 spots that we've come to love, simply because they didn't have that offered yet as a feature. So maybe in a week we'll be able to get an even better number with that enhanced each way, but we'll see.
I'm still working out some Masters takes here. So I have the first Master show drops Thursday. That's with Michael Kim, hole by hole, flyovers. Really appreciate you tuning into that one because that's going to be a big show. A lot of time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears was put into that one. So please share it around, and you can win that free mattress. There's cash giveaways, golf ball giveaways for sharing the show around. So you might as well go do that. Friday, Feinberg and I have already recorded it. We filled out, we made the master, like I'm running a Masters pool on FanBall. It's like $20 to play, but it's at like 5x5 where there's $5 players, $4 players, $3 players, $2 players, $1 players, but they let us pick the tiers of the guys. So we had Scotty, Rory, Bryson, and Rahm as the $5 players, and you get one more $5 player. And it's also a game. You have to think about it that way, too. Like, you need to structure it. It's almost like DraftKings pricing, where it doesn't necessarily line up with the odds every single time, but there's a bit of massaging that goes on. Who do you think that we picked as the 5th guy for that?
Oh, the 5th guy for that top tier.
Because there's a lot. There's like 6 guys that you could pick.
Yeah. I'm going to say Oberg.
Cam Young is who we picked.
Oh, nice. I was leaning Oberg simply because he's been in contention each of his 2 Masters appearances. But yeah, I love the Cam Young selection there as well. And I think that if you had him as a $4 guy,
he would be the most popular
$4. Yeah.
That's exactly the conclusion. Like, everyone wants to pick Cam Young this week or next week for the Masters. That if we put him on a tier with Scotty and Rahm and Rory and Bryson, then it gets a bit trickier to be like, do I really want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
will.
That's fun. I'm excited to try that out. And by the way, I can't wait for that Michael Kim show. That's going to be a lot of fun, because I think one of the things that's kind of weird about the Masters now, many of us, certainly you and I, watch all of the Masters content and play that we possibly can. So we are familiar with every hole. But I think what a lot of people are going to find when they watch that show is they know the back 9 extremely well, and they don't know the front 9 that well. And so having Michael Kim take us through every single hole and hearing some tidbits about shots, because like I've been fortunate enough to walk those grounds. I went to a couple practice rounds on Tuesdays, and the elevation change on some of those holes just is unbelievable. It's like mind blowing. It just doesn't come through on TV. You know that there is elevation change, but you don't realize how much there is. And so I'm really excited to hear him talk about like the approach into number 7, for example, because it's the hole where you get that front pin where everything like funnels into that one spot. And so you get a lot of tap-ins. And when you're watching your guys and you're watching them play that hole, you think, God, everyone's hitting it to a tap-in. Why can't my guys do that? And then you actually see when you're like on the grounds that, oh my God, this is a really small green. They have a tiny landing area, and they have to be super precise with their distance, despite the fact that it's like a 40-foot elevation change when you're 120 yards out. And so it's a much, much, much tougher shot. And I'm really excited to hear Michael Kim talk through it, because, while I can now appreciate how difficult that shot is, I'm sure there are other holes where I don't quite realize how tough it is or what the specific challenges are. So I can't wait to hear him talk about every single hole.
There's a really fun one. It's number 6 when he talks about it, that really long par 3. And he's like, yeah, I try to hit a draw in there. He's like, because I hit a draw every single time. And the green slopes like towards the woods on the right when you're looking at it. So if you can draw it into it, you can get it to stick a little bit better. But there are trees that overhang a little bit on the right-hand side that if you were to bring it in from the right, then you bring these trees into play. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, there's so much like just awesome stuff like that with the trees at Augusta. I remember actually this was the first time I went to a practice round. It was like when Cam Young was first having a good season. And so we basically had like a month and a half of who is this guy who keeps ending up on the leaderboard because he hits it 330 down the middle every single tee shot. And we watched the tee shots on 17 and it's like it's so packed in there. And it was the same sort of thing. Like guys were hitting just dead straight balls because they didn't want to risk having the ball get knocked down. And so even guys who usually hit, a 10-yard cut or a 10-yard draw, it was just dead straight. And Cam hit the most straight ball that I've ever seen. And immediately I was just like, all right, yeah, this guy actually is that good. And so I'm not surprised to see how far he's come since then.
The other point that he made was there's so many shots that like you have to be, not that you have to hit a draw on a lot of shots, but you do have to be able to work the ball both ways, especially right to left. Even if you're a big cutter of the ball off the tee, that a lot of guys will put in a 3-wood or even a whatever it is club that they know that they can turn over at any point in time, that even off the tee, that they might end up doing that on certain holes. Like 14 is one that he kind of pointed out because the fairway just runs left to right and just slopes towards the woods, that if you can't draw it into it, even if you just hit a big cut and drive it 500 yards, you're going to hit the fairway and bounce into the woods.
Did he talk much about all the like side hill lies that you get there and how to play those?
Well, he told me that I think he went today. He's at Augusta getting his practice rounds in, but he told me that after he was like, we recorded last week sometime, that he was going straight to the practice facility in Dallas. He's like, I found a spot at the course where I can practice basically the lie on 13. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I basically aimed at people last year he's like, I draw it anyway and the ball was way above your feet. He's like, you just don't practice these shots. He's like, I have to find somewhere at this course where I can go out and hit like 3-wood off of this.
Yeah, that's exactly the hole I was thinking of when I asked that question. Cause like, if you remember, he actually talked about the players. I think it was just a Twitter thread where he said like at the players, there are so many holes where you have to hit a draw off the tee and then a cut into the green, or a cut off the tee and then a draw into the green. And at Augusta, there are a bunch of holes where you don't necessarily have to do that. But like, think of 13. You don't necessarily have to hit a cut into the green, but you have to make a cut swing into the green because you're on such a severe right to left lie that if you don't, as Michael Kim said, you're going to hit like a 60-yard slinging hook if you make just a regular draw swing. So I'm very curious to hear him talk through that sort of thing. And it's just such a fun, unique show that you did. So I'm really excited to hear it.
Think you know ball? Prove it on Underdog and bet the bracket. Build a tourney bracket for free and see if you can outlast the rest for a shot at $100,000 in prizes. If you're a bracket bust, don't worry. You can turn your bets into real money all tourney long with prediction markets on Underdog. Available right now in most states like California, Texas, and Florida. Head to the Underdog app and put your bets to the test. With prediction markets, you can bet on money lines, spreads, and totals throughout the tournament, all in one place in real time. New markets drop every round from the opening tip to the final buzzer. So, if you love college hoops and think you know how each round will unfold, Underdog is where you make your bets. Download the Underdog app today and use promo code MAYO to get started. Prediction markets on Underdog, available in your state. Back to the DK lineup. So if we go to the very top of the pricing, like Fleetwood's the most expensive guy. I still have the lineup in that I've made already. We can adjust that around. So Fleetwood, Ludwig are the only two above $10,000. For reference, Nikolai Højgaard has pulled out, and so is Gary Woodland. They're both in the Masters. Daniel Berger pulled out on Tuesday morning. It's not a way to not get pregnant, but it is a way to not play in the Valero Texas Open. Additionally, Pearson Coody. His dad needs to pay for a brand new back for him because he's out. That sucks I feel very bad for him coming into last week being number 51 in the world and having to pull out while inside the cut line.
It's brutal. That's horrible luck. And hopefully he'll be able to refine his form and make up for it later in the year.
So how do you think we should play this out? I'm not as convinced as you are that Morikawa ends up being the highest owned guy. I think there's enough people put off by him. I think that people want to play Spieth. I think they want to play. Henley is getting kind of overlooked here, but I think they want to play Hideki as well at the same time. It's weird because we have a lot of this entire upper like 10 guys, even 15 guys are the flawed good players on the PGA Tour that you can nitpick something with all of them.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think what we're going to see is that basically all of these guys carry some ownership. And I think the guys that you named there, Henley, Matsuyama, they're going to be among the highest owned. I think Fleetwood and Oberg have a chance to be pretty popular just based on, especially on Oberg's recent form. But regardless, like the thing that I notice about this field and about the pricing is that there's basically nobody that's going to be super popular in the value ranges. And so that frees us up to do a couple things. Number one, it means that when we are choosing our own value plays, we can pretty much just choose the guys that we're most confident in, because maybe we'll run into one or two guys that are chalky doing that, but we're not going to run into like a lineup where we just took three values and they're all chalky, because there might not be three chalky values, period. And the chance that we actually land on them is really low anyway. And then because you already have some low owned cheap guys, so hopefully you've got some upside from those guys, so they're potential separators. Now you can kind of also just take the guys up top that you feel the most confident in. So this is a week where people who typically don't look at ownership and they don't make ownership a big part of their process, I think that's a mistake. But I think that this week, this dynamic is really going to work in their favor, because you can kind of build however you want, and you're probably going to have a pretty naturally contrarian lineup regardless of what you do.
All right, let's go $7,500 and down of guys that you think, and we'll talk about this from both a GPP perspective of large field tournaments, but I want to think about it from a 3-max and single entry build, like guys you actually have conviction on this week. So you're looking at the screen right now. We're starting with Davis Thompson all the way down to Matt Wallace, 75 through 73. Is there anyone on that page right now that sticks out to you being like, all right, that's the guy? Because I like Hoey, but I think he's a bit too expensive.
I like Hoey too. He's not the one that I have the most conviction on, but I do think he's a really solid play, and
his
game's doing quite well last week until he just totally blew up on 16. But my guy here is Novak at 7,300.
So Novak at 73. So you convinced me before the show to bet on Novak. So I got him 160 to 1 with the 3 places. And you did point out, I mean, obviously he came inside the top 5 at this tournament last year. You talked about how good he's been in the wind, and then his Valspar was lights out. Yeah,
the ball striking was back, particularly off the tee. And so historically, when you've looked at like what does Novak do well, driving accuracy has been a huge strength of his. And around the green has been a huge strength of his. Both of those are really, really predictive here, but his driving accuracy has not been the same basically for like almost an entire year. But boy, was it back at the Valspar. It was the best he's driven the ball in a long, long time. He was good tee to green that week. He just had an awful putting week. It was actually his second straight awful putting week, Valspar and the Players. I'm going to toss those 6 rounds out on the greens. I'm going to take much more signal from the way he drove the ball at the Valspar, and I think he's got a really good chance this week.
If we're trying to find guys from down the board, like obviously he's going to be one of them. Bud Cauley always kind of sticks out to me. I worry about that he had to WD last week, and it was kind of lost because he WD'd the same time that Cootie did on Friday morning. I don't even know if we got a reason why Cauley withdrew from the tournament. They were just like, oh yeah, also Bud Cauley is out.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me check to see.
I mean, there's a little news and note here next to his name. Maybe it says it right there.
It says undisclosed.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Hungover.
Thanks. That's really helpful. But yeah, I'm with you. He seems like a solid play. Basically based on the win splits alone, he's worth considering. The guy who's projecting well in that range that I have no idea what to do with is Tom Kim. So
I wanted to bring up Tom Kim only because I gave him a pretty good look on the research show this week. Because you can see that the accuracy was way down last year, and it's been down again this year versus where his baseline was when he came on tour. It was around 73%. It's down to it dipped below 60 last year. It's right around 61% now. And if you just see how he's been doing recently, it's some of this is course dependent, obviously, but it's been getting worse and worse and worse every single week. And that translates to his strokes gained off the tee. But the approach play has been pretty good all year long. So I think that's why you're seeing the signal. Now, he can't putt. He can't drive. It's good irons to great irons every week. Maybe great chipping, but maybe bad chipping, but none of the other stuff. So that part worries me from like an outright perspective. But I think down at this range, he is a guy who could pop at any time.
Yeah, the around the green's been really solid as well. So you take that around the green and approach. And, a lot of the time what we talk about with players is like, man, this guy's really good. If he can just make putts this week, I'm just counting on him to make some putts. With Tom Kim, it's almost the opposite. It's like, I know the approach play and the around the green play is going to be really good. The question is he using those skills to try and make birdies, or is he using those skills to try and save pars because he drove himself into the trees every hole? And so with Tom Kim, it's just, if he can hit fairways this week, he's got a really good chance to not necessarily be in contention, but he's got a really good chance to be one of the best value plays on the slate. And so, yeah, he's very, very interesting in that regard. And it's weird because, the last 3 events, the driver's been awful. Some of those, especially like last week, I can blame a little bit on the fact that, look, Tom Kim's never going to gain strokes at the Houston Open because he's not long enough to do so. But he gained at the Sony, at the Amex, at the Farmers, at Waste Management, and then at the Genesis. He gained a little bit off the tee. Obviously, all of that gaining was from accuracy. So if he can just find that form off the tee again, he doesn't need to drive the ball long here. Maybe he was just chasing distance a little too much the last few weeks. He's got a really good chance to do something good here.
It's funny you mentioned that because his ball speed, it's not like up markedly. It's been pretty flat for his past 100 rounds, but it has ticked up over the past 8 rounds. And actually, for the year, it's actually lower than it's been. So maybe I'm dead wrong on that, on trying to chase distance. He's just bad at driving now.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think he's trying to chase distance. I think it was just at the Houston Open, he realized if I just make my regular swing, I'm gonna lose half a stroke per round off the tee. So I might as well try to really swing out of my shoes and just hit the ball a little bit harder. Like, we saw some ball speeds from guys like the drive that Woodland hit 196. He's not making that swing on basically any other golf course, because any other golf course, it just doesn't make sense to try that hard to hit the ball straight now, or to hit the ball far. Now, it was cool because he hit it dead straight. And so I think there's a lesson there that a lot of amateurs especially can learn from. If you try to guide the ball, you're not going to hit the ball as straight as if you just really go at it and let whatever amount of athleticism you have come to play. And a lot of the time, you will naturally just square the club face a little bit better when you swing all out than when you're trying to guide it. And that's something that Woodland said, like he went back to his old swing coach, and that was like the first thing that he says, like, hey, you've been trying to guide the ball. We need you to just let it loose a little bit, and the ball will go where you want it. Just trust it. It's going to go where you want it. But
hold on. I just, on actual like swing speed and real golf, because I've come into this problem as well. And I found it was a lot mechanical, because when you watch Woodland swing, it's not a violent swing. It looks like he's swinging really, really slowly. And then all of a sudden it's just like, boom, at impact. So I found like I've done a lot of like ground forces work this year, really trying to create lag in my swing to earn myself some extra distance. And I found that the quicker I get, both the worse I hit it directionally and speed-wise, that if I just have a fluid swing that looks slow, I actually hit the ball way harder.
yeah, I would refine that a little bit to me, it's about the transition up top. So the swing thought that I've used off the tee for probably like 10 years now is be patient at the top. Be patient at the top. It's the only thing I'm thinking about when I've addressed the ball. Be patient at the top. And what it feels like to me is I get the club to the top, and then there's a moment where I'm actually not pausing the way like Cam Young or Hideki Matsuyama pause, but in my mind it feels like I've paused for a moment. The club becomes weightless, and then I go. And that's been extremely helpful for me. And yeah, when I do that well, I'm both more accurate and I gain like 3 miles per hour of club head speed.
That makes sense based on what I've been trying to learn how to do. Like try to get my body moving a little bit get my hips moving a little bit forward before starting to bring my arms like down, but really focusing on the full turn, get the arms down, and then just kind of like the swing. The thought that I have now coming down through the ball is like when I'm at the top, I've got the full range out. I have it cocked, and I start to move forward, bring the arms down, but I try to get like this elbow to essentially like point it at the ball and snap through it now to create the lag. And then at impact, all of a sudden I'm hitting it like 20 yards longer.
Yeah. Bryson does a really good job of explaining this concept, but you want your hands to go fast to the ball, and then you almost want your hands to stop so that the club can pass your hands and you get some extra speed that way. And that's what it sounds like you're doing with that right elbow thought, which is get your hands to the ball in a way that they're actually like the hands themselves are slowing down so that the club head can then pass around, and you're using your hands as like the, the pivot point that the club is going to go around. That gives you some extra speed. So it sounds like you're doing all the right things.
Yeah, I have such an over the top swing. I've had it historically that just getting the ball into the slot before making any sort of move at the ball has been so hard for me to really hold back, because I just get so fast all the time. That pause at the top, even though it's not actually like when you're doing it, it feels like it's 20 seconds and it's like 0.4 of a nanosecond.
Yeah, the other thing that Woodland does such an awesome job of that I think everyone can get something from is just notice how high his hands are at the top and then how much lower they are when he actually starts to come through. Jake Knapp does it really well as well. So that too is something to look for. And I think like, look, if you're an amateur who's working with a coach and he's got you doing something, maybe don't go try experimenting with 100 different fields. You're just going to confuse yourself. But I think most people could go to the range and just experiment with feeling like you're getting your hands as high as you possibly can in the takeaway. You're probably going to notice some cool things.
Other guys in this $73,000 to $7,000 range. For me, you mentioned Novak. I'm good for Collie and Kim. Maybe work them in. I'm not completely sold on them. But after that, I am in on Smotherman. I'm willing to go back to the mat with him. And I'm probably going to do the same thing with with Chairman Mao. That's $7,000. Very accurate. The ball striking has been good, especially the iron play. Where the hell I have Marty Doe in the lineup, but I like Marty Doe here as well.
I think Smotherman has a chance to be like one of the few like truly popular guys in this range, but I think this whole conversation just kind of gets at my main point, which is any of these guys, most of these guys are going to be pretty low owned because there are just so many to choose from. And we're all going to have different preferences. Like the names that stand out to me, Doug Gim, Bo Hostler, which is just a disgusting thought. Do you remember when Hostler was in contention here years ago? And it was like either 15 or 16, whatever the par 5 is.
Oh yeah, sure. Remember it very vividly because I'm pretty convinced Jeff had money on him that week.
I had his outright at 200 to 1 or something like that. And he's greenside, either tied for the lead or 1 up. And greenside and 2 on the par 5, blades it over the green out of bounds, makes an 8 on the hole, and is done. And it's just like, what the hell just happened?
He did something similar last week too. There was like, cut to Bo Hostler is making a run. And I think it was on 17, and he was just on the left side of the green. He tried to play this pitch and like skull fucked it into the water.
It's so bad. I even made the point. I posted this outright this morning in my Discord. And I said, like, look, he's 250 to 1. Do I think he's going to win? Absolutely not. But I like his chances of getting contention, and the models tell me he should be 70 to 1. So I have to bet this, even though I feel like there's no chance that he gets it done if he's in contention. But even if he only gets it done half as often as most players would, in that once they get in position, that still means there's value on him. So as much as I don't trust him when he's in contention, I've got to make that bet this week. But he's interesting from a DFS standpoint, regardless, because you don't actually need him to convert the win. You just need him to make a lot of birdies and make the cut, and he does both of those things really well. And then the other disgusting one down here that I actually like is Andrew Putnam. Just from a pure course fit perspective, he does everything well except he loses 1,000,000 strokes with distance. Distance is the least predictive aspect of the game here at TPC San Antonio. So I think Putnam is a pretty good value and just like a decent bet to make the cut.
I'll probably go to Michael Kim at 69. I like Kevin Roy a little bit. Austin Eckroat really did stand out to me. He's not driving it at all right now or putting, no big shocker, but he is chipping and he's hitting his irons really well. And he always hits his irons really well.
Yeah, I've been rooting for him a lot because I've got a lot of best ball shares. And
me too.
I've been pleased.
Who else down here? Kevin Yu had a little bit of a mini comeback. 2 weeks ago at Valspar, but I'm not entirely in on him. AJ Ewart, I think, is actually interesting here again because dude can't drive it for shit, but his irons and putting are good.
He's so confusing because he was not this good or anywhere near this good last year. Gets his card because he wins Q School. So like usually the guys who break out aren't the ones who just happen to play really well for 1 week. It's the guys who had sustained success throughout the entire season the year prior and are just consistently getting better. That's not the path that he took, but he seems like a really solid player now. He just keeps performing and like almost every single event is one of the best events that he's ever played in his life. That's not typically the guy who's going to continue to have success, but I can't argue with it now. He just seems like a really solid player.
Yeah, and just take a look at the places where he has done well. Like, did anyone expect him to do well in Houston? No, of course not. But he did chip and putt it well, so that's encouraging to see that has sustained itself. The putter has been really good all year, and the irons at courses that aren't super duper long, he's been really good since the beginning of the year. Like, your first starts on the PGA Tour, Sony, Amex, Farmers. So we saw those because Keith laughed at me last week for Pontus Nyholm. And I was like, it just takes some guys a little bit of adjustment time to get good. Like the stats point to it. Since Phoenix, he's been really good at courses where he should be good against weaker fields like this one.
I agree. It seems like he's got a type when it comes to courses, and this seems to be one of those.
I was going to say Carlton Fisk. Steven Fisk was someone I was all over at this place last year, and he had a really good run through 2 rounds. Then the weather hit, and he got absolutely fucked. But I don't hate him again this week. Blanchet is really interesting because obviously he popped in a few things. He has the second place finish. He couldn't quite close it out against Ricky Castillo for me, but then he came back at Valero or Valspar the next week and played pretty well. Again, one of the slowest ball speeds in the field. He was never going to do well in Houston. He probably shouldn't even show up there next year. But is he someone to go back to? Because his iron play has been terrific.
Yeah, I also think that look, his sample size is tiny in the wind, but he was phenomenal in the wind. It's really hard to be that good without at least having some, aspects of your game that are always going to play well in the wind. So it's way too small of a sample to say, oh, he's obviously going to be a great wind player. But I think that was telling enough to say he's probably at least a solid wind player. And, it'd be really unlikely for someone who's not good in the wind to be that outstanding in the wind for one event. So there's maybe enough there to just give a little boost of confidence in what he can do this week.
I see Pavon every single week on the alternate feeds on the weekend. Dude's just making cuts right now.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but they do love to show him. And granted, he does seem to hit a lot of balls close and come close to some holeouts, which is usually when they're showing him, or they show him because he made a 55-foot bomb on the greens. He doesn't really do anything else well.
No, he does not. So are there guys from this low that you would consider? Because I'm in the tank for Baushu. You mentioned Fishburne earlier. I think Sam Ryder might actually be a legitimate option here. I bet him first round leader. He was first round leader here, I think, a year ago. And he's been stringing together pretty decent golf. Yeah, he, T64, T60, but it was mainly on he got himself through and then he kind of folded on the weekend, which isn't ideal for what you're looking for from down here, but he has been getting to the weekend.
Yeah, I've used him a couple times in Showdown in the last few weeks. I haven't been super impressed, but there's a reason why I used him to begin with, so can't argue there. But certainly for me, the guy down here is Fishburne based on his win performance.
We don't worry that Fishburne just kind of sucks?
We do worry that Fishburne kind of sucks, but is there anybody in this range that worry does not exist for?
I mean, I would say repopulate. Matt McNeely, he's pretty good. Go with him down here at $6,200. But no, he's not. Yeah. Superman made the final group on Saturday last. What the hell did he shoot? He ended up coming T28. All right, that makes more sense. He was just randomly in the final group with Woodland and Højgaard. It's oh yeah, Jackson Super had one good round. I don't know. I'm
now confused. Last year, I was thinking that I had a takedown in round 4 Showdown here, but it might have been round 3 if they both were really windy. But regardless, Chandler Phillips was one of the keys in that round, and so the fact that he's down here caught my eye a little bit.
He doesn't got it this year, unfortunately. He's another guy I have a ton in best ball, and he sucks.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like that's usually what you're going to find down in this price range. You're not going to find somebody who's in great form down here at 6,400.
It's probably too much time on the $6,000 range. I like Burgoon. I like Ewart. And I wouldn't mind using them in a single entry, but that's me. That's how I play.
I have no issue with it if you want to get that crazy, as long as you're doing that so that you can fit like as many of the really like high confidence plays as you possibly can.
Well, this is what I have in here right now. I don't know how confident I am in Marty Doe. I'm probably more confident in Smotherman, but the numbers tell me that Marty Doe might just be a better play.
I think he probably is.
Like I could throw Novak into this lineup too. I could upgrade Thorbjorn Olesen up into like Yella Miraju, Nick Taylor, Johnny Kiefer. I have a feeling this, because now that Daniel Berger's out as well, that when we think about ownership from this like $8,000 range, that you're going to see a lot of Ryo Hitsatsune, which I completely agree with. He's going to be a fantastic play. Maybe Jordan Smith as well at 77. And everyone else is going to be relatively under-owned, I would guess.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Penge this week?
I was trying to figure that out myself, that this is the perfect time to go to him, because I ended up off of him completely last week.
Yeah, so this is basically my thought. Like we knew the field was really going to like him last week. The fit was there. He was coming off a really good week. The thing with Penge is we know the driving is going to be good. He's not just long, he's actually accurate. We don't know about the rest of his game, because what we've seen so far from him is different this year than what we saw last year on the DP World Tour. If he can find the DP World Tour form, he's a pretty good fit for this course. And it's the same sort of thing. You know, last week, basically the field was saying, oh, we really like him this week, even at this elevated price, because the fit is there. And we saw enough at the Valspar to say he's back to his DP World Tour form. Then he doesn't play well. Now the field's probably going to be very much off, even though it goes from 92 to 7,800. He's intriguing, because the other thing with him is like when he plays well, you know he's going to make a ton of birdies. So if he finishes, let's say 35th, he might be like 20th in DraftKings points. So at low ownership, I think I'd be pretty interested.
Would you buy anything into Harman right around this price? I know no one's going to him, but he finally actually had a good week at the Players' Championship.
A little bit. I'll give it some thought, especially if he's low owned, but there are definitely guys around him that I like more. And the difference between like Harman and Penge for me is they do project similarly. But even if they're similar ownership, like I just view Penge's ceiling so much higher. Maybe that's a silly thing to say. We've seen Harman actually like win big tournaments.
You mean a major?
A major. We saw him win this a year ago, but particularly like I'm almost more talking about ceiling in terms of just the explosiveness of the scoring. Harman's not going to make a million birdies to get there. If he's going to have a ceiling performance, you actually need him to play like outstanding golf. Whereas Penge could still make a bunch of mistakes and do really well for you in a given week. And so it's ceiling's probably not the right way to put it. It's more just like, I like the explosive scoring that Penge offers that a Harman obviously does not.
So the other guys right here, here's a name I wanted to bring up. He comes in at, I was thinking about betting him as well. I haven't done it yet this year, so now might be the time. He's $8,000, and he's not Johnny Kiefer, because I've bet that guy plenty of times. It's my main man, Canadian Nick Taylor.
Yeah, he looks pretty good this week, and
the numbers are. I mean, he hasn't been putting. We know he can putt. Just get him in contention and he can putt. Like, he's probably the most trustworthy guy in the field if he's within two coming down the stretch. But the irons have been great. The around the green has been amazing. He can't really drive it right now, but he could never really drive it. You just need him to be accurate. I don't really care about his distance, and just flip his putter around.
And not only that, but like, yeah, the driving was awful at the Valspar. He lost over 2 strokes per round. It was really bad at Bay Hill. He lost over a stroke per round, but that's not him. Like even surrounding that, he's gained strokes off the tee, mostly due to accuracy, almost all due to accuracy, really, in most of his events this year. So it's just 2 uncharacteristic days off the tee or weeks off the tee. I think he's really good play. The fit is excellent at this golf course. And to your point, there are very few players on tour, let alone in this field, that I have more confidence in to play well down the stretch and turn contention into a win.
Does that make him a better bet than DraftKings play, or does that sentence not even make any sense?
The sentence definitely makes sense. I don't know that I would agree with that, just because there's so much room for him to be a very good DFS play where he's still not in contention, but I do think he's a good bet. So I think he's just good in both.
Okay, so he's $8,000. Like I like Yellow Miraju. I didn't get those 140s on him to kick off the week, so I'm not going to be there on Shooter McGavin this week. But I think he'll be somewhat popular. But Hitsatsune is going to suck up a lot of oxygen right here because people really do love him.
And he's playing really good golf,
and it's a good course for everything makes sense. Like, could you build how? Let's say I built this team: Taylor, Hitsatsune. We go Jordan Smith, who I think is going to be somewhat popular. Then we have 8,600 left. You could go like Spawn, Noren, Keith Mitchell. I know this isn't like a very good team, but all of these guys, you can create the path for them here, but you're missing out on that high end. But the high end guys are all just, there's a bunch of guys who fail to close tournaments, is that the guys at the top.
Yeah, you're right about that. So I'm very often a proponent of this type of lineup. I think this still works in single entries this week, but I would avoid this type of lineup in MMEs this week because it's basically a guarantee with how many options there are that are cheaper, that someone out there is going to have the right combination of cheap guys. And so you kind of, in my opinion, you lose too much of the upside in the win equity in a lineup like this compared to those lineups. But in single entry, what you lose in win equity, you might be gaining in a lineup like this just in made cut equity. And so if the field has, 3% 6 for 6 this week and you're 6 for 6, you might not need all of the win equity. You might be okay with one guy in the top 5 and 2 more in the top 10 and then 4 in the top 20 or something like that, just because 6 for 6 can be that powerful.
Alex K14, who is like the best DFS golfer going, he qualified and got another seat into the Fantasy Golf World Championship last week. Now, obviously, these are higher stakes, but I thought it was very interesting that he won, $25,000 in a smaller. It wasn't like a 14-person field. I think it. Let's see, how many people were in this one? He pumped in $918, and he had a whole bunch of lineups in it. Ended up taking it down, so it was a fairly big tournament in terms of number of people, and he did it without having Gary Woodland.
Yeah, sometimes you don't need the winner; you just need that many guys getting some finish position bonus points. And so, I mean, that's an awesome lineup. He's on one of the best heaters that I can recall seeing. So good for him. Hopefully he makes it 3 in a row this week.
But I thought it was interesting that a lineup like this could come through without having the winner, which, to your point, was impossible if you played in the big $25 or the $5 or the big, even the 88 probably was done for.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that too is that, number one, Woodland was really low owned, so there weren't that many lineups that you had to compete with that had Woodland, and the 6 for 6 percentage was low. So certainly many, if not actually, well, most of the Woodland lineups didn't have 6 for 6. So you were competing against a small amount of them to begin with. You were competing against an even smaller amount of 6 for 6 Woodland lineups. It's not surprising that in that kind of a contest, you didn't have to have him to win.
So let's try to build out. We just did like the 6-8K guy lineup, but let's try to build out a real single entry lineup based on, obviously you're going to change this by the time that Thursday comes around, but directionally, where would you like to go in the structure of a lineup you think we'd like to see here?
So I really like Henley up top. I really like Siwoo. And if you're right that the field is hesitant on Morikawa, then he's going to be my first click. So yeah, if we want to put those 3 in, if we want to say, okay, we're going to use at least 2 of those 3, and then maybe we leave Henley out for the time being and see if we have enough. You're 100% right. Novak's the next place I'm going to go. In fact, Novak's probably my first click, to be honest. Not even the one that I'm clicking after I choose the guys up top. But
so this leaves you with 77,000 left. Would you prefer like Siwoo Morikawa, lose Henley, and get one of these like Nick Taylor, Thorbjorn Olesen, Brian Harman? Is that the route that you would want to go, or would you want to go a bit more stars and scrubs because you have more conviction at the bottom?
I think you're right about this move, where I probably only want 2 of the really expensive guys, and then my third most expensive will probably come from the 8K range, like Mitchell or Noren, Fowler, somebody like that I don't think that they're that far behind the better players, especially if you can get someone like Mitchell, for example, who almost always outperforms his real life leaderboard position in DraftKings points. I'm not opposed necessarily to going right to Kiefer again. He does not project well for us, but it's because he hasn't played very well this week. But we all kind of had a sense of who he could be coming into the season, and last week was that guy. And man, that Sunday round was impressive from him. So
and like it's worrisome that he can't chip or putt, obviously. However, when you look at his numbers versus what Corey Connors did the years that he won, it's kind of the same guy statistically. Obviously, Kiefer hits it longer than Corey Connors, but that's really the only difference right now.
Yeah, that's kind of a good point. Actually, the short game was good last week, and it was good at the Players. So like, it's really weird that of all the places that you could have a good short game week, coming at the Players Championship is so odd. But I remember in the Sony, he was not good around the green, but I used him that week, and he was on the featured groups, and there were like 2 or 3 pitch shots that he hit on one of the days. It might have been the Friday or something like that, where it required a lot of creativity, and he played it really, really well. Had to make contact, had to hit his spot really well, and so my initial impression of him was, oh, this guy already has a polished short game. That obviously hasn't come to fruition. That's not the case. He's very much struggling, but I've at least seen signs where like, okay, this guy could end up being good around the greens. It's very different from Hovland, who like you watch Hovland chip at any point in time, you know, this guy's not going to be a good chipper anytime soon. So there's at least like some optimism there. And the putting is the weirder part, because obviously the way that he played on Korn Ferry last year, I don't think there's any chance that he's a bad putter, but so far this year he's been a bad putter.
There is something too, if you take a look right now at the screen and see where he struggled, maybe he hates Florida.
It's definitely possible.
Like the guy sucks in Florida.
We're not in Florida anymore, so.
Well, that is a thing though with the different grass types. Like some guys suck with the just. I know it's like overseed right now, but you still have those wonky Bermuda lies that some guys just don't know what the fuck to do with them.
I also think so. Like one of the things that you and I talked about in one of our off-season shows was the fact that you can get some like really weird like putting on Bermuda splits, because sometimes you're just struggling with something and it happens to come at a specific time of year where you're playing the same type of course time after time. And so what we might have seen is that he had like a small issue with his iron swing. He gets on 3 straight golf courses where those issues and those misses are really magnified because of all the water, feels even less confident in his swing as a result, makes those mistakes for 3 weeks, gets away from the water, fixes the issue, and now he's just full go again because he doesn't have to deal with all that. So multiple possible explanations, but to me, the most likely is he had a very brief, like real struggle with something, seemed to figure it out last week, and I just loved everything that I saw from him on the weekend, especially the Sunday round.
So Morikawa, Siwoo, Mitchell, Kiefer, Novak, and we have $7,200 left for Tom Kim or Marty Doe or Smotherman. It doesn't really matter who we end up taking here ownership-wise, I don't think, at least. You did mention that Smotherman might peak a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be so much that people are like, man, can't use Smotherman. He's going to be 30% owned. He might be like 8% owned.
Yeah, and I also hate myself a little bit, so I might go back to Max Homa.
No, let's not do that. Let's try to stay away from that.
No, man, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Yeah, at the Valspar, I was so confident in him. I was ready to say Homa's back.
Me too. I bet on him. He sucked. He sucked so much.
And he was awful. He was awful, and it was off the tee. Like that was really, really surprising, really disappointing. But you know what? His irons were still good that week. So maybe we do want to go at least entertain him. I put it this way. If I were MMEing this week, I would very confidently be overweight on him, but he's probably not going to make my single entry lineup.
Not a bad first round leader look. I'm going to add him to the list. Burgoon, Ryder.
And not a bad showdown play. I think that's probably the better way to use him this week.
I had someone else written down, but I scribbled it so poorly that now I can't read it. Homa, Burgoon, Ryder are 3 that I have right now. First round leader wise, kind of like identified as probably someone that I want to take. Adam Scott, first round leader at the Masters, is a look though.
Yes, it is. Adam Scott, any bet at the Masters, I think, is a look.
It's a Homa. Who would you fill this out with though? The last spot, the $7,200.
Let's see. I think Tom Kim might be my leading candidate right now, but if I'm making the bet on Kiefer's talent, I might want a quote unquote safer guy at 7,200. Safe, like it's a word I don't like to use in DFS, but obviously like just someone who's a little bit more likely to make the cut and care a little bit less about, hey, if this guy has his 8 game, how good is that going to be for me this week? So like Homa and Tom Kim, I'd put in that if he's got his A game, he's going to be awesome camp, but the chance that he has his D game and misses the cut is probably a little bit too high right now. So
how about this? How about I'm gonna flash the stat profile on the screen. Any interest in this guy?
I love the around the green.
And like the approach, except for Florida, pretty good.
Yeah, I like this guy. Who's this?
Marty Doe.
Okay, yeah, I like Marty Doe. I was thinking Bud Cauley might be the anti-Tom Kim, where it's like I don't expect him to contend even if he has his A game, but I like his win splits and I like his chance to just make the cut.
That's the one where he has the undisclosed injury that I have no idea what to expect. And this was a guy who missed 3 years of golf with a back injury.
You know what? That's a really good point. And so if I'm already saying that like I don't love his upside, can I really say that he has a good floor when he has injury uncertainty? So I think that's a really good point, and I'm probably going to X him out of my consideration there.
We'll throw in Marty Doe. For my lineup, at least, your lineup is probably going to look a little bit different. I know we didn't really touch on Fleetwood or Ludwig or Bobby Mack. Is there a preference of those guys? Because for me, it would go Fleetwood, McIntyre, Ludwig at this course.
Yeah, I think my preference would be Tommy up top. Oberg is starting to project pretty well for us, and you probably remember last year I kept telling you like Oberg, worse than 20.5 finishing position is the best bet that you could possibly make, and for a while that was true. And what we're seeing from him so far this year is a little bit closer to what we all view him like his potential at. So basically, like my thesis last year was, we all know what or who Oberg can be, but who he is really far away from that right now. This year, he's starting to close that gap a little bit, and he makes a ton of birdies. So he's projecting pretty much in line with a lot of the guys around him, even though his expected strokes gained is below those guys, just because he's going to score so much better than most around him. So I'm interested in him, and if enough people say, you know what, this is not the course for him, I'll be in on him.
All right. That'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Sub to the rabbit hole, betspertsgolf.com/Mayo. Not only is it 25% off, get you 250 ballots into the draw if you sub right now for that HELIX mattress giveaway. What's going on at FTN Fantasy this week?
A lot of good stuff. So first of all, I've been very fortunate to have a chance to win all my brackets, and all I did was use the FTN stuff. So the models are awesome, and the MLB model is spectacular. So whether you're somebody who likes to bet or play DFS, check out FTN for baseball, because the baseball model is just spectacular. And then PGA Sims are really, really important because of wave advantages, knowing when to stack, when not to stack. We've got all the different wave scenarios kind of built in. And obviously, contest sims are only as good as your ability to predict the lineups that you're going to go up against. And to do that well, you need to do ownership well. We do ownership really well at FTN. So I think more people should check out our Sims product over at FTN, and you can use promo code Blick for 10% off.
Yeah, check out the link to Blickle's Discord as well. That's down in the description right now. I will see you around the same time next week, but there'll be a third. Tambo will be joining us to do the Masters. It's almost here, man. It's very exciting.
It's extremely exciting. And this week is extremely exciting from a DFS perspective, because it's all about trying to get those tickets into the Masters, so that instead of playing for $400, I'm playing for $4,000 next week. That's the goal. And hopefully we can win some tickets this week.
All right, that will do it for me at the PME. And again, remember, give me your favorite 6K guy in the description. Smash like, sub to the channel. And if you do want the full cheat sheet with a weather and ownership breakdown closer to lock, just hit the description. Mayo Media on Substack. It'll get sent directly to you for free. You'd be crazy not to use it. So go do that now, all right? I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!